Hey folks, Steve here with another special all green alike video for you today. In this video, we're going to be picking up where we left off. We'll be covering turns 7, I guess, onward until I decide to stop. We've done 3 turns per video. This would get us through 7, 8, and 9 of the turns, but I do suspect that we're going to be calling it soon, if only because uh, while July 21st, this turn would be the big battle of Bull Run. Historically, in this alternate timeline, the Union had crossed the rivers early through the woods and the eastern part of the area of operations, and that sort of triggered an early battle, one that very generally the Union has come out on top. Though I should point out that in a couple of places, things for, I guess, really both armies, though I think the rebels got the worst of it. There were points where both armies were reaching their panic point, but that has not yet occurred. At various points, the Union coming across Bull Run had really put the rebels in a difficult position. The rebels were able to stand fast in many places and force Union forces out of the way, even while the Union did take Manassas Junction. The rebels had retaken it, but not before the Union had burned the depot. And so there was a number of different fighting instances that did drive the Confederate morale almost to panic, but then cooked off as the day ended. Um, and so too for um, so too for the Union at various points. But generally, the Union have had a better time in this campaign, and in fact, they've really managed to not lose much manpower at all. And I think we've, in terms of battle losses, not enlistments forcing removal, the Union has taken 3 points of manpower in combats where the rebels have taken, if I calculated correctly and I counted correctly, 16. Really? Is it 16? It must be 16. Um, which is not good. And I'm trying to figure out, like, where all did that 16 come from? I guess some of that coming from the Shenandoah Valley, with Jackson's brigade getting torn up real bad, and then just the steady stream of losses over the turns that includes the combat losses and then losses on retreat, which has happened a number of times as the Union were first breaching Bull Run. In the last turn, it was rain, which affected the river crossings around Bull Run and Broad Run. Um, the the rebels decided to pull back over Broad Run, but in the process of doing that, like, that still took some effort in the rain to get over there. It limited the places that you could actually cross the rivers, which is tough. Um, and then the Union was pretty happy to just let that happen and sort of recuperate and rest up and get organized. And they managed to do that. And maybe it was ultimately a mistake to pull back. I will note that at this point, I think maybe it's 2 things if I'm generous to myself. I have not played the Rebels the best, though I think in some circumstances I had no choice. I do think I'm playing the Union fairly well, but they've also gotten some pretty good movement die rolls in certain situations that really benefited them. But at this point, they have Fairfax County occupied, Prince William County occupied. At this point, the Union's just trying to methodically advance, and where feasible, either once again breach the next river line and put the remnants of the rebel army to a bad situation, and just wait to see what happens with Johnston's forces. Johnston is still coming over the Blue Ridge Mountains. He's not making a lot of ground. The rain did slow him down. He did let he tried to move a little bit, and then he let the rain turn be an opportunity to rest his men. I should point out that Johnston's forces have taken a number of additional losses from extended movement, and while it doesn't count for victory points, it does reduce their overall ability to affect the conflict to come. And really, Tyler's division could go toe to toe with Johnston and probably do a decent job of reducing his effectiveness. So there's really not a lot of options for the rebels to make a lot of ground. I have thought about trying to head back north because more and more of Patterson's forces are going to start to disappear soon, and there's a little bit of a dash to try to take Winchester before that happens. To just see, um, can we get something going to where we can, take care of that? That's worth some victory points. If Johnston tries to head back north, I think all what's going to happen is he's going to get wrapped up in the fighting, and not a whole lot on the overall campaign impact is going to have changed. It would just mean Johnston's abandoning Beauregard, and not as though he's got a real good chance of catching up with Beauregard if Beauregard continues to retreat. And that's why I'm saying I may simply call it within the next couple of turns, maybe by the end of this video, um, to just say, hey, we could play the rest of this out. And I don't think it will be terribly exciting because it seems pretty clear what the situation is. So, so much is coming, in the interplay of, do you bother to march? If you're already exhausted, don't march anymore. You're just going to lose more men. But if you need to get to safety, is it worth it? And at that point, I think you're already in a death spiral. And given that, again, the Union has not really lost a lot, it is really hard to find where we can make a lot of ground. Now, the one opportunity that still remains for the rebels would be if they somehow could have gotten um, several routes on some Union brigades that are sizable. That would maybe be the way to get through this and panic the Union Army and then kind of get them running away. I don't think that's very likely. The thing to keep in mind with these panic points, or the morale and panic mechanic, is that panic mechanic um, is that if a force retreats, it doesn't matter how many step losses it takes, either from the combat or uh, additional step losses from Zox and the way that you retreat, losses during the retreat. You count morale points against your panic level based on the full manpower value of the stack. So if you have a 6 manpower force and maybe it's disorganized and it's fighting at a lower combat level, if it retreats, you still count it as 6. If it's a regular retreat, meaning a small r on the combat results table, you count it as 6 points. If they rout, that's 12 points. And when you realize that the morale levels are like, somewhere between 20 and 40, even one unit routing, if it's a decent sized brigade, could be a pretty major impact. And if you can get a couple of those off, that's where you can trigger panic. We've not seen either army panic in this one because I've done a pretty good job as both sides ensuring that even if one unit got routed, the others are willing to kind of cover or retreat or kind of position themselves where they are going to hold steady. There were a few opportunities when the rebels were on the counterattack um, that they could have caused maybe a couple of routes, but the combat die rolls just didn't go their way, and it ended up just being kind of attritional disorganization results or minor results in general. And so, um, there I can definitely see where you can cause panic relatively easy if the right set of circumstances appears. So far here, it's been a little bit more attritional, and the die rolls have just worn out both armies a lot of the time in terms of like how far are you going to get, what can you do. That rain was really an interesting spin on the situation, but ultimately it has just resulted in the Union being able to rest, the rebels trying to get to a better place. The one problem is, if you notice the absence of Confederate forces here, it's because they're all stacked in this force marker right now. Um, because getting over the river took so many movement points, there's a bit of a traffic jam in those hexes, and they're kind of stuck there. So, what the nightmare scenario right now is, if the Union get a string of initiatives, which I don't think is going to happen, um, you could see maybe McDowell kind of snaking around here, somebody else moving through here, and then, or maybe somebody from Tyler's division comes down, and then locks up the army right in here, and just bangs on it until it collapses. Any of that could happen. But what I still have an opportunity for, though, is for the Rebel Army to try to do a night march. They have one night march left for the Potomac forces. It's hard for them to get the night march, but if they can, I would do the night march and get them covering these fords, because now that the rain is over, those minor rivers are fordable again. So, not a great position, and it's just like how much longer do I want to play having one side just getting the crap kicked out of it the whole time, with Johnston still so far away, and even the Union cavalry, going to be looking to delay their force or divert them, further north, where they're still going to have a hard time catching up. If they do catch up, it'll be so late in the campaign that there wouldn't be really much reason for the Union to be too concerned about them trying to come into, say, like Fairfax County or whatever. Johnston's forces really just have, let's see, 3, 6, 11, 16 manpower, which is not bad. By comparison, there's a rebel cavalry. There's one manpower here trying to hold the pike, one here, and then 3, 6, 8, 15, 17, 21. So 21 manpower with Beauregard altogether. If they can get in there, Johnson can get down there, it would be a big help. But and what I still think is feasible maybe is if he can get down there, the fresh troops and the tactics bonuses that the Confederate units enjoy could be the difference that they just need to panic the Union. If they can panic the Union Army, that could cause a mass sort of rout retreat situation, and they could reclaim Manassas Junction. But it's just looking very difficult to achieve that. I'm going to run through. There's a long intro, but I think we're in a really critical stage of the campaign here, where the last hope is dimming for the Confederate forces. I'm going to do more of the intro stuff, the random event. I'll cut back in once I've determined that. That will maybe decide how things go for the rest of the turn, and we'll play through. Okay, the event for the turn is Confederate command paralysis, unfortunately for them. We do continue to see enlistments drawn off from Union armies, though the removal for this turn is mitigated a bit by the Union losses that had already occurred, using that optional rule. And then the reinforcements, the Union is getting a brigade on. The Confederates are getting a couple of regiments that are relatively weak, but could help to replenish the battered brigades that are there at Broad Run, and we're ready to get the turn in order here. The rebels failed to night march. The modifiers were really against them on that one, so they're kind of in a really precarious position. And what really matters is this next initiative die roll. I did do leader transfer, so Heintzelman's moving back down south. He's got one brigade that's out of sorts from being retreated previously, so that unit's going to have to activate and start trudging down soon. But everybody else is in reasonably good shape to continue to move and operate, and we'll see that. So I'm going to roll initiative just to see who gets the first one, and it is actually Union 3-1. So I certainly see either Heintzelman or McDowell maybe activating somebody and quickly seizing one of these river crossings. The alternative would be to have Tyler activate his force and start a sweeping maneuver to the west. As I'm trying to think through like what's more valuable, I think making sure that the rebels can't hold the river line is more important than Tyler outflanking. He can do that later. So this first move that will happen will likely be something over here to move once again this way in behind the Confederate forces, knowing we're going way beyond our supply stretch, but I don't think it's going to matter too much longer. I mean, the Union can afford to be out of supply a bit. I should also point out that over the last turn or so, we've had foraging occur that has removed the out of supply status. Um, so I think you can do that every turn. Yeah, pretty sure you can, so long as the fatigue levels of a unit's not too high. So everybody's has managed to forage for food as they go here, but it's gonna be gonna be tight. So I'm gonna play through for a bit, and we'll show where we're at a little bit later here in turn 7. Here we are. Here we are, partway through turn 7, where a lot of the Potomac forces have kind of petered out. There was some fighting here, and the rebels have actually managed to push the Union back, dealing a lot of morale impacts to the Union, and consolidating control of the river. The flank here is still dangerous, but now the Union position isn't beautiful, if only because at last Johnston is possibly some hours away, and he should arrive sometime the next day. So now Tyler's division can't simply be the flanking force. They're going to have to work to fight off Johnston, though they do have Hunter and our additional reinforcement brigades moving into position to contest that. Everything else here is relatively weak and tired. That they're now holding that river. It's going to be touch and go here as the Union tries to find a way to flank again, though that's going to be sort of a tough thing. It up in the valley, the Union forces have advanced to around Winchester. We are now preparing an assault. It won't be a grand assault, but I do want to try to make an effort on Winchester here. I think we've got a decent chance, despite Jackson and other forces having some entrenchments there. I think we're going to try our first assault. Now, the way the Union does have initiative here, and so the way this is going to work is someone's going to initiate the assault, and then it's a matter of rolling with the command ratings of the leaders to see if they join the assault. So it could be that this goes very poorly. It could go much better. So we're just going to have to see what we can achieve. I can't get everybody that I want into a potential grand assault via Patterson yet. So we're going to try to give it a shot, I think. I haven't done an assault yet. I want to try that out, see how well it goes. If we get it, we'll have taken control of Winchester. We will have isolated this fort north of Winchester. I'm just waiting for an opportunity to take that as well. The pressure is on here because we want to take it before Patterson loses more forces. So if we can clear this out, then it doesn't matter how many men melt away. We will have pretty good control of the northern valley with Winchester under control. So we're going to try to do that. The rest of the situation continues to develop. Again, I think the Union is still way ahead in victory points, but the rebel forces are trying to figure out when and where can they try to force the morale to break. Right now, it would still take a couple of brigades being retreated or routed to initiate Union panic, but it's not impossible. It's just hard, and things are kind of evening out down there. It's really going to be up to Johnston, I think. He could make or break this after all. If we can get in and hit Tyler's division hard enough, that could cause the chain panic that we need. So still, while I was getting kind of doom and gloom, I do see a potential here, but it's going to be a close near-run thing. All right, here we're at the end of turn 7. Again, not a huge amount of change in the Potomac area, still north of Broad Run. But Johnston is nearby. He's just exhausted, so it's going to be interesting to see how these two forces clash. I definitely think that Tyler's going to have to peel off the line. They're going to have kind of a shifting approach. It could be that the rebels can hold the Broad Run line while we deal with Johnston. So we're going to have to deal with that. In the north, we actually conducted a grand assault leveraging Thomas cavalry. I think that was legal. Either way, we rolled well enough to force Jackson out. We have taken Winchester. We will destroy that depot this coming turn. There's still a small force in that fort north of Winchester, which we have surrounded. It's going to take some doing to actually crack that, but we may be able to pull off another grand assault this turn um, to do just that. And at this point, Jackson, he's here with Carson, and they have 3 manpower between all of them, greatly outnumbered at the moment. Though again, we're going to see some of the Union forces start to disappear as we go. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge for everybody. There's 3 manpower in here, which tripled is 9. So it definitely has some penalties, but we're going to have a um, sort of a flank attack bonus. We're going to have hopefully some kind of grand assault. Main thing is we just want to clear all that out so that the rest of these forces are just in pretty bad shape. Now, granted, Jackson's not demoralized. He's got some counterpunch he could try, but it's going to be limited. So I've got to think through, what makes the most sense to try at this point. There may be some opportunities as the enlistments end. So yeah, so we're really going into turn 8, and let me run through the first several phases to get us set up, and we'll talk through the results of that. All right, really quickly, we ended up with a random event that was no result. Patterson lost 5 whole manpower this turn, and so whatever we're going to do up there in Winchester, we better do it quickly because we're going to start losing men like there's not going to be nothing left soon, which is distressing. Meanwhile, down in the Potomac area, really nothing too crazy. Just what happened is Ewell absorbed some of the regiments that were in that Force 1 marker, which is across the river. So he's the best unit. He's got a tactics rating of 1, and he's got an artillery point. So it made sense for Ewell to absorb the manpower into himself as part of the attachment phase. And so yeah, things are about as good as they can get for the rebels that they could hope for in this moment. But obviously, the situation's still not looking good for them at all. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I'm going to play through some of the initiatives, and we'll see where we get to. Both sides did not get reinforcements this turn. The rebels rolled a 1, which means they don't get anything, which is going to be a tough gig for them. And we'll see what happens. All right, here we are towards the end of turn 8. I've been doing the cleanup phase here, and the rebels have taken some drastic action to try to push on the Potomac Army. Actually got them up to 21 morale losses, which is kind of scary. But in counterattacks and various combats, the rebels are at 30 morale points, which when Johnston came over that mountain range here, right there, that terrain, it increased the threshold of panic for the Potomac rebel army up to 35. So they have not reached their panic point. But they were awfully close. But just got to the point there was nothing else either side wanted to do that wasn't going to cost them more over time. And so very generally, as I look out to up here, Patterson has managed to basically push Jackson and the rest of the rebel forces off the map. We did a grand assault and achieved victory, which was cool to see. We kicked them out of Winchester, we kicked them out of the fort, and we chased them down until they were eliminated. And they panicked right before they eliminated anyway, so we'll get all sorts of victory points for that, and generally we're in really good shape. Which is good because Patterson's about to lose all his guys. So we'll look at, let's see, it was turn 8. We're going to turn 9, which is going to be July 23rd. There's not much to say here, guys. The fighting going back and forth. The Union have breached the Broad Run line. I might play until the end of turn 8 here and call it. I'm sorry, end of turn 9 rather, and call it and just see where things stand at this point. I'm going to start calculating the victory points because it's looking harder and harder for the rebels to try to do much. I sent Ewell up the center to try to disrupt a bunch of Union forces, and he had a good chance to really screw up the Union, and it didn't quite get the oomph that we needed to flip the script on the Union. And so despite trying, we're just not getting to where we need to be. So let me start looking at turn 9, and we'll go from there. Okay, guys, I've played in through where the Confederate Potomac Army has panicked, and I think that is well beyond game, set, and match. Johnston got hung up here, and we had Hunter kind of blocking, caused him to retreat out, forced him out, separating his forces with the Bull Run Mountains, kind of separating Johnston from his forces. Hunton was eliminated. Ewell's been sent packing out, and basically the Union has strong control of all the areas around Bull Run and Broad Run. Basically, there's really little that Beauregard can do. They could try to make some attacks, but they would probably only hurt their forces even more. At this point, it would be more of a chore to keep playing. So I think I'm going to call it there, guys. Um, the Yeah, that's it. I think we got to call it on turn 9. I don't see a point in trying to keep going. There were we did get enlistments stay for and we used that for the Shenandoah force, so they didn't lose as many manpower. Eventually, Patterson's forces would all mostly leave or be mostly gone. But as it relates to the Potomac Theater, I mean, we still have a lot of oomph to go, and really, with the rivers just being circumvented, it would really just lead to Beauregard trying to retreat away, Johnston trying to figure out a way to meet back up with his forces to do something. And at this point, it would be like guerrilla tactics, which, in terms of victory points, there would just be no way to come back from a Union victory on this. In just looking at the victory points and just kind of talking through, very, very generally, we are going to have almost on manpower losses alone enough to declare Union victory. We have control of Frederick County at the moment, though that would change as the manpower goes away. We have control of Fairfax County. We have control of Prince William County. We are, in all ways, victorious here. We didn't push into Fauquier County. I'm not sure that there's a need to. But we would have, so plus 17, possibly another plus 5, so 22. 28, possibly 29 here shortly for burning the rail station at Bristow. 36 from the Confederate Potomac Army panicking. 41. Yeah, I mean we're running up the board like crazy. So what I want to do next, guys, just because I realize this video is very particular, just covering sort of the wrap up as things sort of dissolved over time. I think we need to call this campaign. I'm sure at various points I did something wrong in terms of the rules. I forgot to adjust a casualty marker on the turn track. Maybe I forgot to count the full morale loss for a unit. For sure, I think there was play mistakes made as the rebels, and I think that's probably one of the key things. I should have been so much more aggressive with the rebels early on, but I didn't do that, and I maybe could have knocked the Union off balance early, and they just could have never gotten a grip on things. They would have been too busy maybe being demoralized. Maybe we could have routed them early. There's so many ifs here. I almost want to play the campaign again, but maybe if I do, it would have to be North map only. I'd functionally be playing scenario 6 instead of 7 because while I do think it's interesting the interplay with Johnston's forces here, it might be cleaner to just do the North map and be able to focus on the advance from there. So what I may do is I may work to re-rack this scenario for the scenario 6 Bull Run campaign. and take some lessons learned into it. I actually quite like that idea. And then what I might do is, instead of doing several videos of the Bull Run campaign, which is functionally like just this map of the Virginia campaign, I'll do some kind of after session report of my playthrough of that, and add some additional context, because I think this game just went so well for the Union. It's really hard for me to like. I know so much could have been so much different and so much better for the rebels, and it just didn't happen. And failure after failure, or good result after good result for the Union. So I think I am going to try to do that. Replay the campaign, only do the smaller Bull Run campaign, and that should be both easier for me to get to playing, and should be easier to get a session report out here in the very near term. So if you watch this whole thing, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We maybe knew the result in the last video, but I'll go figure out how to get the Bull Run campaign going, and which will be very similar to this, and we'll be able to see what happens if the maybe luck goes the other way. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Keep gaming.